why is this dude able to do what he does, right? What's his secret sauce? And that's, the answer I came to, and this is partially his own words, is that he reasons from first principles. He likes that term. And once I started to understand, what does that really mean? And it's one of the two major ways to reason. Reasoning from first principles, it's a physics term. It means you ignore all the noise. You ignore all the conventional wisdom and the assumptions and your own previous dogma and everything else. And you just look at the facts. You look at, how much the parts of the rocket weigh and the force of gravity and the wind resistance. And you use that to say, can a rocket be landed? Can you launch a rocket and then land it? And his answer to that question was yes. So he did it. Now, there's a whole other kind of reasoning by analogy, which is when instead of kind of reasoning from first principles is creating a conclusion from scratch based on first principles, core kind of axioms and facts. Reasoning by analogy is taking one of the many existing conclusions or dogmas out there and basically photocopying it into your own head as what you believe is true. So to use the rocket example again, what most people like Elon would have done in that situation is say, if you could land a rocket, the Soviet Union and NASA would have done it a long time ago. They have every reason to do it. It saves a ton of money. They had the budgets. They have the scientists. Coming out of this, there's no way. I must be missing something. People do this with companies. I have this good idea for a company, but if it was such a good idea, someone else would have done it. You can name any major part of life, politics, scientific, beliefs about the world, or about the business world, about whatever. All of it is or art. What makes good art about it. All of that is almost always there's just this big kind of tapestry of conventional wisdom, and most of us just say that's reality. And so if my independent reasoning disagrees with the tapestry of conventional wisdom, I must be wrong. I must be missing something. And that is a humble, normal way to think if you're in 30,000 BC or 10,000 BC when generation after generation after generation, things didn't change very much. So conventional wisdom was wise. It was the accumulation of a lot of trial and error about the same repeated kind of life. And so you were stupid. You were naive if you thought you were smarter than that. But now when the world changes so quickly and technology changes, and every 5 years, the new possibilities that are different than the old ones, conventional wisdom is actually it lags behind. It's very foolish. It's wrong. And so it's often wrong. It's not always wrong. And so it's actually very rational to say, I'm going to trust my own reasoning when it disagrees with conventional wisdom, but we're so wired not to do that. So most people, they say, I'm not going to build the rocket because there's no way I'm right and NASA's wrong. Elon doesn't think that way. To me, his secret sauce is that he is extremely good at he just has that, he doesn't have this irrational thing that overrides his own reasoning. He's able to say, I guess everyone's wrong. I guess NASA didn't do it right. And that just separates him right there. I mean, there's a lot of things that he's good at, but that right there makes him very unusual. And so again, with Twitter, someone who reasons from first principles, they're going to experiment a lot. They're going to get stuff right. They're going to get some stuff wrong, but they're going to create change. Steve Jobs with the iPhone, I use that example too. Like, they didn't just say, well, what should our keyboard look like? Because that's conventional wisdom that there had to be a keyboard. They just said, what should a mobile device be? And really reasoned from first principles and came up with something totally different, and then turned out to disrupt the entire industry. So real disruption, whether it's artistic or entrepreneurial or technological or intellectual, it's usually there's some real original thinking going on from someone who has the kind of that epiphany that my original reasoning is as good as anything else out there. And that I'm just as good a person to figure this out as anyone.
But there's always a fine line, isn't there, Tim, between bravery and recklessness. And a lot of the time, it's if your idea works. So if your idea works, everyone goes, yeah, he was brave. Well, what a brave dude. But if it doesn't work, it's like, do you see what I mean? Yeah. So it's a superpower, and at the same time, it can be your greatest weakness.
Definitely, it's a riskier way to live in general. But another thing that Elon points out is that a lot of times people are more afraid than they should be. They think, I drew this in my post as a scale of danger from 1 to 10. And I said that just say 7 to 10 is actually dangerous. Either physically dangerous or you're truly going to have to, not be able to feed your kids or something. And then everything 1 to 7 is, increasing risk, but it's nothing that bad's going to happen if it goes wrong. And that I think that we all hang in the 1 to 3 zone, or maybe 1 to 4 zone, and we think 4, 5, 6, and 7, that area is super dangerous, and so we don't do it. And the people that realize the danger doesn't start till 7, huge superpower, because they can go play in the 5, 6, 4, 5, 6, 7 areas and change the world and do stuff, and they might fail. And that what they've realized is that it doesn't really matter. Failure is okay. Elon has a quote about he says, I don't know why more people don't start a company. What's the worst that happens? You're not going to starve. You're not going to die of exposure, right? Like, what's the worst that's going to happen if the company doesn't work out? And that not, thinking like that would make a lot more people start companies. And so many people sit there and they dream about their company their whole life, or they dream about writing that album their whole life, or whatever it is, writing that book, and they never do it because they think that it is, their brain is incorrectly assessed that as real risk to fail at that. Maybe it's a little bit of embarrassment. And the truth is, most people are self-absorbed, not even thinking about you. It's a dumb reason not to do something. So again, I can say this, but I feel it too. We all have this kind of irrational fear of failure. And so, yes, you can be more reckless. And I think if someone who's so reckless, they go up to the 8, 9, 10, that's too far. I mean, maybe not for everyone, but like, you have one life. Like, I don't think you should actually risk your life very often. I don't think you should risk completely destroying your financial situation, to the point where you have a family and they can't go to school anymore, or whatever it is. I think that reckless, though, a lot of people call that 4 to 7 area reckless when they see it. And that, I think, is wrong. I think that's good recklessness. People should get up there and not worry about failing in that area.